I have given a name to my pain. The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill
The Bat of Gotham.
You don't really think you'll win, do you?
I'm Batman.
Hello and welcome to episode 144 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow our Twitter at BatPodNetwork. If you're listening to us on iTunes, if you take the time to rate and review the show, we'll read it on the air. And seriously, guys, I know there's a bunch of you that haven't written reviews yet, and I want to read them, so send them in. BOF is also now on Patreon if you like what we do here at BOF, whether it's the podcasts, vlogs, or the website itself, and you want to help support us. If you're so inclined, head over to patreon.com/BatmanOnFilm and sign up. I am the host of the BOF Podcast, Ryan Hoss, and this episode is going to be our Avengers Endgame discussion between BOF's Rick Shew and myself. It was originally posted as a BOF vlog, but there were some audio and video errors that we had in the episode, so we took it down. But the good news is that I was able to clean up the audio for the most part and get it reposted here as a podcast. So if you've been dying for some MCU talk on this Batman podcast feed, here you go. We also talk about Back to the Future and The Matrix and Ghostbusters. And Batman 2. I'm serious. We didn't leave them out. Enjoy.
Hey now, welcome to episode 47 of the Batman on Film vlog. I am the host of this episode, Rick Shew. With me is my podcast co-host, BOF brother, Ryan Hoss. What's up, Ryan?
Hey, I am here. Yeah, how's it going? I'm good.
Hey, good, man. What are we talking about today? First of all, we have been trying to do an Avengers Endgame podcast for 5 years. No,
yeah.
sometime.
Yeah, it's been 5 years.
Sometime
like
now. And it just kept falling apart and real life schedules and everything. So we just said, to heck with it. Let's do a vlog and let's angle it, since it might seem to be a little anticlimactic that we're doing a vlog on a movie that's out, 3 weeks now?
This will be the third week, yeah.
And it's weird. There's that sweet spot, right?
There's that sweet spot. In most movies, it's like opening weekend and maybe half of another week. But Avengers Endgame, we're going on week 3, and it's abundantly clear that this is in a different realm of conversation, because it's just been this giant cultural phenomenon. We knew it was going to be big, but it's biggest movie of all time big. You know? Literally
the biggest movie of all time. It took that crown from Avatar.
Yeah. Well, no, not yet. It probably will.
Did it not? Has it not crossed it just yet?
Not yet.
I'll say
it beat Titanic. So you've got
Titanic is what it beat. Okay.
Worldwide gross is a big, biggest movie of all time. You've got Avatar. Titanic was number 2. And now Avengers Endgame is past Titanic. So it still has to beat Avatar, but it's a really good chance that it's going to. It's basically made $1 billion a week so far.
We are recording this on Friday, May 10th, and it brought in last night, which was Thursday, May 9th, 7.5 million on a Thursday. Okay, it's his 14th day of domestic release, and right now the worldwide total is $2,320,735,000.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
And it broke all these other records. It did have the biggest worldwide opening, the biggest foreign opening weekend, the biggest opening week, the biggest opening day, the biggest single day. Single day Friday gross, single day Saturday gross, single day Sunday gross. And it's the widest release of all time as well. I mean, there's just so many crazy records it's already broken.
And it's a 3-hour plus movie.
Yeah, that right there really tells you that people really wanted to see it. When I saw it, because I saw it the Thursday preview when it came out, and then I saw it Friday as well. And both of those days they had like 2 a.m. showings, and people were lined up like crazy just to see it that early.
Wow. 1.2 billion opening weekend.
Yeah.
That's more than Rogue One's total box office run. That's just shy of The Last Jedi's.
Yeah.
And both those movies were very successful $1 billion plus Star Wars films. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a whole other realm.
So I'm kind of referencing an article that Scott Mendelson posted just recently on Forbes. It looks like it's going to be the highest grossing film of all time, but it doesn't look like it's actually going to pass, speaking of Star Wars, it's not actually going to pass The Force Awakens domestically.
Yeah, that is interesting.
You look at Aquaman, that hits over what did it do domestically? Like 400, 300?
I don't remember the specifics, but I mean,
it wasn't
the international gross heavily contributed to it getting to a billion.
Right.
Most movies, I mean, that's true for most movies.
It is, except for Star Wars. Star Wars is not.
Star Wars is a little lopsided. Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't do well in China, especially the last 2 or 3 movies, and but obviously domestically. But that's the difference now. Like I used to look at it as all that really matters is domestic numbers, and it's just not that way anymore. It's not the world we live in now. No, we're so connected, and whether it's I don't want to get into politics here, but whether it's our economy or pop culture, it's just everything's global now, which is fascinating. So, I mean, I go back to this thing where it's a 3-hour plus movie, and I'll say this. We can kind of transition here and talk about how we feel about the film. Where'd that come from? the movie, man. Occasionally, Texas does come out in me. I love this movie, dude.
Yeah,
like a lot. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean,
it didn't grab you like it did.
Yeah,
me.
well, I mean, just because you have to be lucky and see it in a preview screening before it's an official release, and you were telling everybody how good it was, and I expected it to be good, and it's the culmination of this thing. But and historically, I do tend to like closing chapters of of franchises. But like when I first saw Infinity War, I was like, this is a great movie. It's got a good backbone of a story, and I want to see where it goes, and everything was just done so well, and the epicness of it. Endgame didn't immediately strike me that way, although, I mean, I knew it was big, I knew it was epic, I knew, like, they hit all the marks, but there was so many stories. It was so complex compared to Infinity War that it took me 2 viewings to like let it sink in enough for me to really appreciate everything that they actually did do in Endgame. Like, you can watch, like Infinity War is like a fun roller coaster ride that gets you with a gut punch right at the end, but Endgame is like a whole movie of that. And it's like it's got to wrap up all these other storylines and be the culmination of the 10-year journey that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has taken and everything. So, it took a couple of viewings and some time for me to like let all that absorb. But after it did, I'm like, okay, yeah, this is like a great movie for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. It's always cool to kind of peel back the onion on people's opinions and feelings about a film or any work of art for that matter. Because for me, it was kind of the opposite, where I enjoyed Infinity War. I certainly, at the end of that movie, I remember going, you can't not applaud the epicness of this film, plus the world building, how diligent and just it's so precise, and it has been so strategic that you have to just give the MCU mad props for making this work over a course of what is the total 22 films. Yeah. Okay. But I still walked away going, the reaction to the movie left me a little puzzled. And I get it that I'm on record that I'm much more of a solo driven movie guy. Like I would much rather watch Iron Man or The Incredible Hulk versus an Avengers film. And then I get to Endgame and I was under an embargo for like 48 hours after it, but I was able to just tweet my emotions. And plus we were private texting initial reactions. And I think I said something along the lines of, so have you laugh out loud several times?
I kept going back to this because that's what.
Yeah. If you cry 3 times, like literally cry, and you cheered 3-4 times, that means the movie's pretty kick-ass,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Yeah,
what else
you can't
I mean,
say that stuff and then on the other hand be like, well, it was just okay, because if you've checked all the check boxes, then what's stopping you from saying this movie was great?
I would say it's not my favorite film of all time. It's certainly not even my favorite comic book movie of all time, although it is up there. But it is one of the most exhilarating experiences I've ever had in the movie theater.
I agree with that. And I think that, for movies like this, I think it would be nice if fandom as a whole could get away from this. It was the best movie ever. We have to rank it immediately. I know we're guilty of that, but like, when any...
I don't do lists.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean... The tendency is like, when Shazam first came out, we saw a lot of people that thought like, oh, this is the best DC movie ever made and stuff like that. And if people really felt like that, they must be huge Shazam fans. But then again, it's like, there's, I think trying to go there every time we see one of these movies lessens the discussion we could have about the movie. Let's talk about the movie and not about like how much better or worse it is than all the other movies. And again, we're guilty for that in a lot of ways, but I think it would provide more interesting discussion and discourse than to like talk about the movie. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. That's fair. That's totally fair.
But this one, for Endgame in particular, it's one of those things where it is such a gigantic cultural event and ending to this entire, era of Marvel that you can't not talk about the larger context that it had to do, had to fit in.
You can't know. And I say that the biggest contribution I think that all the previous films have done was resulting in this, what I consider it a masterpiece. I will say that.
I agree with you.
I consider it a masterpiece the same way I consider The Dark Knight a masterpiece.
So when we saw,
I'll die on that hill.
No, I agree with you, because when I saw The Dark Knight Rises, that's one of those things where now you see the full picture, and when you have that whole story, each individual movie helps enhance its, brothers.
Sure.
And that was definitely true in the trilogy. Like in Dark Knight Rises, it has good callbacks from both Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and it wraps up the story, and it's all this complete thing. Endgame does that too, but it does that across this giant amount of films, just not only because of like pulling characters from other films, but they wrap up storylines and they do references for things. Like you see how Captain America's story ended in Endgame, and they pulled things. Well,
spoilers, by the way. If you haven't seen the film, turn it off. We're going to talk about this movie.
It's statistically impossible that you haven't seen it because of how much money it's made. But
sure.
But I guess if for people like watching this vlog, 10 years from now, you better watch it. So, like the way that they ended Captain America's story, it calls back to the very first Captain America movie, and some of the other movies where they've kind of alluded to, where's this guy's life going to go? Is he going to get a happy ending? There's only one thing that can make his life complete, and they even like call back in Endgame itself. And there's so many things like that throughout the whole movie that you can watch this. Like if you didn't watch Infinity War, you could just watch Endgame and enjoy it. But if you've been invested in watching all the other movies, it just makes the experience that much better. And
the passing of the torch to Falcon.
Yes.
Sam, you're a good man. And that whole sequence where he's on the bench, and then Sam asked him, and he said, "Well, you wanna tell me about her?" Because he's got his ring on, and he just kind of looks off to the distance and has this smirky smile and just says, "No, I'm good. This is all just in here."
Yeah, and that's the things they do with the characters.
Such good stuff.
They did with the characters in this movie were so non-traditional in a sense. Marvel, especially early on when the MCU started, there was a lot of, these movies will go on forever. It's just another episode of a TV show. They're just like the characters from the comics, and the other movies from like DC or whatever. Those are the ones that are really taking these characters places and doing interesting things with them. But by the time you get to Endgame, you realize like this wasn't a franchise that was going to last forever, or without evolving some. And what Endgame does to its core 6 Avengers or whatever, like some of them die, some of them change forms, some of them evolve in different ways that you weren't expecting. And what we saw happen with Captain America is like a big part of that. And passing the torch is a thing that we thought, like, it's an interesting thing that hasn't really happened in the superhero genre yet, because we tend to just reboot stuff. We're just going to reboot Batman. We're going to reboot Spider-Man 48 times. But here there's an opportunity to see what happens next. Almost like the comic books, where they can have different people embody the essence, the spirit of what that character is, but have a different person be wearing the suit or wielding the shield.
And who has earned it.
Exactly, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, some of the themes in this film, when I think about the things I love about it the most, the thing that sticks out at the forefront is I wanted to say the daddy-daughter themes, because there is a lot of that. But it's not just it's
surprise too,
Yeah, it's not just daddy-daughter. It's parent-offspring. Period. Yeah. But I mean, just at the top of the film, when Hawkeye loses his family,
what a gut punch that is, especially after not having him in Infinity War. You can kind of just know, oh, he's kind of with his family, he's kind of out of this, and then you see how, because in the theater when I saw Endgame, everybody, as soon as they show him with his family, everybody was like, oh no, before the snap stuff even happened, people knew where it was going.
It's wow. I mean, just right out of the gate. And then Tony has a daughter.
Yeah. And
then to bring all that full circle after his incredibly beautiful passing, when his wife tells him he can rest now. And after he looks at Thanos and says, I am Iron Man, and saves the universe. It was beautiful. And then the projection of him at the end, his recording. Yeah. And he walks right over to the couch where his daughter's sitting and throws her line back at him. I love you. 3000. I cried. Yeah. I literally cried, dude. And Robert Downey Jr. he's a national treasure. And they don't need to try to recast Tony Stark for a long time. Right. Just leave it alone. Yeah. Leave it alone.
For sure.
Just leave that alone. But it's not just that. When Scott Lang comes back,
that was so surprising, and Paul Rudd did such a good job selling that.
Dude, that scene with him is like the best acting I think of, and I like him a lot.
Yeah,
but
like just
when he sees his daughter, it's like, look at you, you're so big. I mean, I really felt it. I thought, this is a guy that hasn't seen his daughter in 5 years.
And we're talking about that.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, and it's a science fiction. It's a science fiction like superhero like setup, but they play the emotion of it, and you can tap into the human like elements of that, and that is all throughout this movie, because they do that 5-year jump, and you see that, and it's true in comics, and it's true in most superhero movies too. Like when something big like this happens, they can just erase it in the next movie. Like Superman dies in this movie, then you can just come back with magic, mother box thing in the next movie.
Sure.
That's just an example. Like in comic books, one writer comes back and they can just change stuff. But what they did in Endgame is that within the confines of this movie, they said they have to they failed, and they had to live with their failure for 5 years. Like it gets fixed and everything in the end, but it's not perfect. It's not back to square one. The status quo isn't just back to the status quo. They have to live with their failure and grow from it, or not.
And I want to say one more thing about Tony that I want to pick up on that. What it was also great is not only did you have this stuff with his daughter, but then he gets to meet his father.
Yeah.
And that to me was very reminiscent to one of my favorite films. And I sometimes forget how much I love it, is Field of Dreams. And have you ever seen Field of Dreams?
I have not, but I think it's like the 25th or 30th anniversary of it this year.
Oh, dude, it's great. You don't have to even like baseball.
They're going to screen it. They're going to screen it in theaters this year. I think it's a Fathom event thing.
Well, I don't want to ruin something for you. Okay. Just watch Field of Dreams, and you'll know what I'm talking about. There's to me, it's a throwback to that, and whether it was intentional or not. Maybe I shouldn't use the word throwback, because that's kind of an intentional purpose or direction. But it certainly resonated with me in the same way. Just really beautiful stuff. Now, what you were talking about a moment ago about them having to live with their new existence and the mistakes they made and just where they're at. That stuff in the film was some of my favorite. Like when Cap is at the therapy session and he's just talking, and there's the guy talking about going out on a date for the first time. This could just not be. I feel like I'm just watching a character-driven drama with some fantastic actors, and that guy is one of the directors, right?
One of the directors,
right? Has he done acting?
I
just didn't know that.
He started out as an actor, yeah. And
did he? Because he was very natural, and that just the whole. I love this movie, man. So yeah, some of those themes with and even with Thor and his mom, all that stuff worked. And
there were like a ridiculous amount of callbacks to Thor at the Dark World in this movie, which really surprised me. It made me want to go back and watch it. It's definitely not one of my favorite MCU movies, but I'm like, okay, that's worth a rewatch. And I've never done a full MCU rewatch before. So a lot of my thoughts on the movies are predicated on just my initial reactions at the time and just talking with people afterwards. Some of them I do have rewatched, like, the original Iron Man is probably still one of my...
Right.
It was perpetually my top number one, but that might have changed now. But a few select ones I've rewatched. All the Captain America movies I think are among the strongest ones. And
Chris Evans is amazing.
Yeah, he is, and
he's.
But I haven't done a full rewatch, and I think maybe it's time to do it. Maybe after Endgame comes out, they'll probably do some giant 4K mega collection of everything. Maybe that'll be the time to do it.
Yeah, I went back and watched Infinity War again just to see if I liked it more, and I didn't necessarily like it more, but it did make me like Endgame even more.
Right.
If that makes sense. The last 2 or 3 films, I haven't been real keen on the direction of Hulk. Thought he's just become sort of a
he's not for everybody.
Clownish. Yeah, kind of clownish and just this whole Professor Hulk hybrid, and also the way that Banner describes it and explains why he did it and how he did it. It just all that worked for me. And when he's watching himself in 2012,
and he's like embarrassed by it.
He's put his hands over. Oh, dude! I mean, it killed me. It just absolutely killed me. I loved it, and I thought that was perfect for me. I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I love his contribution. Just everything worked. The Captain Marvel stuff worked. It was just pitch perfect. Thoroughly loved that movie, and I was so surprised when I came out. The thing, you have any final last words? Because I've got one last wrap up here, but anything else you want to just add to the...
I was just so impressed that it wasn't just a giant 3-hour fight scene. That you go in, you get... I
wouldn't have liked it if it was.
Well, yeah, I mean, and we talk about that in these movies a lot, like, the last 30 minutes is just nothing but CG, and it's just too crazy or whatever.
The third act
curse. Yeah, but this whole movie could have been a whole third act curse, and early on they called the movie Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2, but then when they changed the names, we're like, are they just changing it for marketing or whatever? No, I mean, these two movies are very different movies. They're different. They're definitely related, and they're connected and everything, but the tones and everything that happens is two completely different movies.
Absolutely.
So I was just impressed that they were able to ground the story with the character work, because that gets you invested in everybody. You're already invested in everybody, but they didn't forget about that in this movie, and the storytelling choices they made with the 5-year break, or 5 years later, just really made it that much more emotional and poignant at the end when everybody gets to come back to this new world that had to endure the snap when they came back. I mean, it was just great to see. That's because they earned it at the end when everything is against them and it's just Captain America left and his shield's cracked in half or whatever, and he says, but then everybody comes back, and then he gets to say Avengers Assemble, and then you get your giant final fight scene with everybody, and it just works so well. So
that could have not worked so easily.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of predictable. Most people are coming back. I mean, they still have movies.
Well, see, no, and that's Endgame.
But it worked.
Endgame is full of X, Y, and Z needs to or should happen in the movie, but it's all about the execution, like, and how they did and achieved the things that they did in the movie were so pitch perfect that it like elevated what even most people could have just imagined would happen,
Right, sure. I find it interesting too, the latest trailer for Spider-Man Far From Home, which looks great, that it's very much picking up after Endgame. Obviously, Tony's gone, and the Russo brothers were on Twitter and they were saying,
the spoiler embargo lifts on Monday, so and that was like after the 2 weeks or whatever. So they were like, so if you haven't seen the movie, people can talk about spoilers on Monday, and that I found that funny because that was sure it was deliberate because that Monday was the same day that the Spider-Man trailer came out.
Oh yeah, of course they knew that too.
The first thing it says is like, "Yep, Iron Man's dead."
Yeah.
So,
yes.
That's great.
I can't believe he's gone. Yeah, so great. So I have one complaint about Endgame. You ready? Okay. I've seen it twice. I mean, I'm definitely seeing it again. I saw it at a press screening on a small little art house theater screen. So there were no trailers for that. And then I saw it with.
It's not even about the movie.
Yeah, that's good. It's my transition, so don't ruin it. It's my segue. It's my segue. And then I saw it again in the theater with a bunch of my neighborhood dads, and I was so excited to finally see Episode 9 Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker trailer, and for whatever reason my screening didn't have it, so I still haven't seen that trailer on the big screen, and we never did a satellite podcast on that. We've missed some Star Wars shows. You and I and Paul Herman text about doing something on the late great Peter Mayhew, Chewbacca, and we never got around to that, unfortunately. So, but we also never talked about the Star Wars Episode 9 trailer, so I thought we might take this opportunity to chat about that now. So I haven't seen it on the big screen. You're screening.
I've seen it I've seen it in game twice, and I've seen it in IMAX 2D twice at two different theaters. And they both played the Star Wars trailer. So,
man,
they the day that
how did it look?
That trailer came out, me and Rob Myers and Trey Jackson were all in Bowling Green at the Bowling Green Batman in Academia conference, and so we were like in the middle of this 2-day full like Batman academic presentation thing, and during lunch, I'm like, oh my God, the Star Wars trailer is out. So I'm like, I don't want to watch this on my phone with no sound or whatever. So I had to wait until later to watch it. But yeah, seeing it on the big screen was just amazing. And the whole giant packed theater seemed to be like, oh, Star Wars. Yeah. Like, okay, this looks good.
Dude, that opening shot with Rey is so intriguing and just, pardon my French, but just kick ass. I mean, I don't even know how to just awesome.
I didn't and don't hate The Last Jedi. There's good parts in it and bad parts in it. I still think The Last Jedi is pretty freaking great, in my opinion. There's so much good stuff in it that it outweighs the bad for me so much. But it's also one of those things where, again, because it's a third part of a trilogy, it's all on this movie to wrap up not just be a good movie in its own right, not just wrap up the sequel trilogy, but it's supposed to be this ending of the Skywalker saga, so it's supposed to also wrap up 9 movies worth of narrative.
Pretty deliberate title.
And the title tells you that, and there's a lot of, maybe more than any title in the Star Wars cinematic canon, has such weight behind what the meaning of it should and could be. So I'm super intrigued to see how they wrap it up. Seeing the trailer was enough for me to be like, okay, I'm in. I kind of just want to stop. Speculating is fun, but I kind of just want to go in, let them tell me a story, and hope that it blows me away, because there are so. And I know that they're holding so much back from the trailer. It's just our first trailer of the thing, but there's already so much in it that I'm surprised that they have told us this far up front, like the Palpatine thing and the Death Star stuff, Well, the trailer opens with Luke narrating, and then it closes with Palpatine laughing. Yep.
That's intentional. and I think their strategy is to say the old is still here. They have to use Hamill in the marketing, especially since the online Star Wars fan base.
He's in the movie.
He's in the movie.
Yeah.
We're pissed off that he died. Still never understand. First of all, it was a beautiful send-off. Secondly, no one's ever really gone. There's even a theme in the film. And there's Force Ghost in all the previous movies. So it's like, right? I think that we're going to get some flashback scenes of Luke in action when he was younger.
Star Wars
something. Right. But anyway, regardless, I'm not going to write the movie in my head, because I'll be honest, I kind of did that with The Last Jedi. Mm-hmm. And I walked out of the press screening of The Last Jedi going, huh? I'm not sure what to think about that. Yeah. Saw it the second time, and I just sat there and I was watching it, and the movie was over. I said, totally get it, love it.
That's right? Kind of like what you said about Rises too.
It is. Now, Rises was a little different because
there's a lot that went into that.
It was the day after the horrible shooting in Colorado, so you're just kind of in a funk. And then the movie isn't exactly how you thought it was going to go, and it felt more like Batman Begins sequel than a Dark Knight sequel in a sense, in some ways. And so it kind of just felt like it was misplaced, and I wasn't quite sure what to think of any of it. And then I saw it with Bill the second night, and I was like, I love it. And my reaction to the second night of seeing The Dark Knight Rises was even more, I had more enthusiasm and more passion even than I did for The Last Jedi, that I loved.
Right.
But when I watched The Dark Knight Rises the second time, everything just clicked. Yeah. Everything worked. Yeah. I don't want to even get into it because it'd be an hour show in itself. At the very end, when John Blake Robin, new Batman, is literally rising, and then obviously Bruce is with Selena and Alfred. Just absolutely beautiful, perfect ending. Probably still my favorite ending of any film ever. But I'll say this, man. When I watch The Last Jedi, even now, and that speech Luke gives to Kylo at the very end, it is like some of the best stuff in the freaking franchise. I will not be The Last Jedi. Yeah. Then you see Rey and she's moving the rocks, and then how can you not love that if you love Star Wars? I just don't get it. I'll never get it.
Yeah, there's so much that, and I don't think that they're going to ignore anything. I mean, it's going to be its own movie, The Rise of Skywalker, but I can't wait to see the story threads get paid off,
Even if she ends up being a somebody, even if she ends up being a Skywalker, it doesn't negate what happened in The Last Jedi.
Yeah, regardless of what happens, it won't negate it. Yeah,
it will not, and it could, and in fact, it could strengthen it. Like if let's say she is a Skywalker, then you watch that and go, and then Kylo knew, right? Sure. He was just really effing with her and got her to say what her biggest fear was. And Rian Johnson and the director's narration, that's not the right word. It was commentary. Thank you. My God. In The Last Jedi, he talks about in that moment when she is told by Kylo and she confesses that she knows that her parents are nobody. They're just filthy junk traders and left her for drinking money or whatever, sold her off for drinking money. That's the hardest thing that she could have heard in that moment, which is exactly, it mirrors Luke and Vader in Empire. Him hearing that Vader was his father, that was the hardest thing for him to hear in that moment. So there is actually a parallel. People wanted it to be a parallel where she found out she was a Skywalker, but in essence, it's a parallel because they both found out. Yeah. They both heard the most awful thing they could have heard.
It's more about the emotion of the moment than like
yes.
What the moment is.
So who cares? So who cares? I'm torn on whether I want her to remain a nobody. Or part of me, the fanboy in me, wants her to be a Skywalker or Kenobi. And like, if Ewan McGregor's Force Ghost came out and said, I'm your grandpa, I would probably just cheer, right?
Yeah.
But so there's going to be some fan service in this film because there is some split, obviously, between hardcore fans on The Last Jedi. So they've got a lot riding on this thing. But I think JJ is going to land the ship. So. Let's talk Peter Mayhew for just a second. Man, I got really choked up and bothered by that. He's such a sweet guy. And, I'm in Dallas, just for those that don't know where I live. And Granbury, Texas is not too terribly far from here. I'm in actually Plano, a suburb of Dallas. And, he's made a home here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for many years now. I don't know how long. He's been here, God, at least 10 years. And so there's a lot of local cool tributes to him. But I just want to say to him, or about him, is that for him to create a character that had no lines. I mean, he did, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And to have all these different emotions with just kind of the tilt of the head or the, or the look in the eye.
And that's the important thing to remember.
It's really
his eyes, at least, right?
Those are his eyes, right? It's very impressive when you think about it, particularly when you think about filming that movie in they were probably filming it in 1976. And is that right? Because it came out in 1977, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, back then, like a character like that was just unheard of. He's probably in this thing going, what the hell is this? I don't even know what this movie is or what this character is, and had to make it something. And, man, he'll be missed. And I have to give a lot of props to his replacement, Jonas. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Do you? Zuotomo, who a lot of people might not know this, shared the screen with Peter Mayhew in The Force Awakens.
And then Mayhew consulted on The Last Jedi. So,
Yeah, he consulted. And then, of course, Jonas was on Solo. And mad props to him. He's doing a fantastic job. He's taking
up the mantle, and not just by wearing the suit, but like everything that Peter Mayhew kind of stood for in that character, and then Chewbacca stands for, like as a fan, in a fan context, which is just really great to see.
Absolutely. Peter Mayhew was a sweet guy. I never met him. I didn't obviously know him, but you could just tell. You can't fake that. And Jonas seems to have that same quality. He seems just like a sweet, I just want to walk up and give him a hug.
Right? Like, did you see the tweet that somebody from the International Space Station made, where they had, Peter Mayhew's picture up there in space? Like as a in remembrance thing. Yeah, I should look that up.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, that just shows you the kind of impact that not just Star Wars, but like him in that performance and that character means to people.
Great stuff, man. And what's cool is that since there's 3 Skywalker trilogies, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's interesting to point out that he was able to be in all 3 because obviously he's in the original. He was in Revenge of the Sith. Yep. And then obviously he was in The Force Awakens. So that's cool. So R.I.P. Peter Mayhew. R.I.P. Real quick, one last Star Wars thing, and then let's wrap this thing up. So the films were announced that we're going to get 3 films between 2022, 2026. Just get your gut on this, and then we might do it.
It's going to alternate between Avatar and Star Wars in December for the next 1,000,000 years.
So obviously it's 3 films that are slated. So I look at that and you could say has to be a trilogy. I'm not 100% convinced it is. Maybe so, but are they going to do a new trilogy that soon after The Rise of Skywalker? Or is this a Obi-Wan and then something else and something else? Or what do you think?
I think that it could be it could be anything, but my gut is that it will in fact be a trilogy because they've put the movies there. It's consistent 2 years apart once it starts, and they could just be staking their claim and they'll say, we'll put whatever here. But I think that what they're doing is by the time it comes out, they said, and they will have done, a considerable gap between The Rise of Skywalker and this next trilogy. It will be 3 years, right? So that...
And that's a long time when you think about how Star Wars movies have been released under the Disney. Before that, 83 to 99.
Yeah, so... in this new era, 3 years is a considerable amount of time to not have any Star Wars on the screen at all. So it's almost like, The Rise of Skywalker ends their phase 1 for a MCU relation of what they're doing with Star Wars. So I think they're gonna regroup. They're obviously doing the TV stuff with things like The Mandalorian and things like that. So I think that whatever this is probably going to end up being like the next trilogy, whether it's a saga numbered movie or whether it's its own thing, whether it's the Game of Thrones guys doing stuff. The constant rumor is the Knights of Old Republic stuff. Who knows? But I think it probably will. I think that this will probably be the next trilogy. And then anything else, if they decide they are going to do more Star Wars movies, like Star Wars story type movies, like an Obi-Wan movie, that'll come additionally.
I really hope we get that Obi-Wan film. I don't want him to go to Disney streaming. I'll take it. I want Ewan back in the role, but just give him a major motion picture. All right, man. So let's wrap this thing up. How excited are you to we should be getting, hopefully, Matt Reeves' Batman stuff should be coming out relatively soon. I am so stoked to cover this movie, dude.
Yeah,
aren't you?
It's just like
I'm so stoked for the whole thing, man.
For the eruption of any information, like actual concrete information about what this thing is. It's just there's such a calm before the storm kind of thing about this movie right now. And I can't wait to see what in the heck it is and what it's about and what his angle is, because they've given him, and he's taken the amount of time he needs to make something new. So it's not just going to be, oh, we're just making more Batman in the same stuff. Like, it's going to be its own thing. So I can't wait to see.
Regardless if it has some connected tissue.
Regardless
or not,
of it could be.
It's going to be its own thing. Yep. It's going to be a very unique take, and for sure.
Regardless if it's connected in the biggest or smallest of ways. Yep.
You and I love the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yep.
Bill loves the Dark Knight trilogy. There's a lot of our BOF brothers and sisters that love them as well. Rises obviously is the film that that's where people start to split a little bit, because Dark Knight Rises is the Last Jedi of Batman films. But in some ways, but you and I love those films. But you and I both are open and hopeful that, hey, I'm all fine and good if a filmmaker makes a better film than those. Do it.
Yeah,
go.
Yeah, please.
Go. Yeah. Just stand on the shoulder of great directors and storytellers, and just keep improving them as much as we can. And if Batman Begins is suddenly not my favorite Batman movie anymore, I'd do backflips. Yeah. I want a new favorite Batman movie. Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah. Okay, man. So let's do some plugs here and then and get out of town. So you've been in control of the podcast now for some time and doing a great job with those. What's going on lately?
So follow me on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. The Batman Podcast Network is on Twitter at BatPod.
Oh yeah, follow that, please.
It's BatPod Network, and that's a really easy spot to like stay in touch with the major like BOF podcast type stuff. That all that stuff gets posted there, and as well as the BOF Instagram. It's just Batman on Film on Instagram. I always post the new it's basically like my Instagram related to Batman stuff related to Batman on Film. so any like podcast stuff goes on there. Anything that I think is interesting related to Batman goes on there. There's some videos and stuff from when I went to see the Dark Knight trilogy in IMAX in Indianapolis, as well as some stuff from the Indianapolis Children's Museum has a big Batman a little exhibit thing that I took some video of. You can see that on the BOF Instagram as well. So the last episode of the podcast we did was episode 143, and that was me and Eric Holtzman and Pete Vera doing a commentary and discussion of the series finale of Gotham, which was fun, where we got to see Batman for 3 seconds or something like that. And
is that what you call him? Just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. I kid.
Yeah. So that was a pretty good discussion, pretty fun. Even if you didn't follow Gotham, which a lot of people didn't, you can still watch that last episode and then watch and listen to our show, or listen to it along with watching the show, and still get something out of it. So I would encourage listeners to do that. And I'm probably going to post this on the podcast feed too. So if you're listening to it, the audio, thank you. And the next podcast after this will be hopefully our show that covers the aforementioned Bowling Green State University Batman Conference. Between the three of us that represented BOF, we were on 4 panels. So we recorded the audio of all 4 of those panels, and the audio of those will be split up between BOF and Robin Everyone Loves the Drake. So it'll be kind of a 2-part like thing that people can listen to get the full scoop on how that conference went. It was really great.
That's awesome, man. It's really cool. And as far as podcasts go on my end, I still want to do the Back to the Future show with Paul Herman. And you and I and him. And yeah, we've got, I know, it's sometimes like, the cool thing about that is it's not we can do it whenever. Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's, we're going to have some cool satellite stuff coming up too, because
Yes.
Like, we want to do that. There's a brand new Ghostbusters 4K collection that's coming out in like a month, and me and Paul both got that, and we've been talking about doing commentaries and more podcasts about that leading up into this new Ghostbusters film. So I'm sure that stuff related to that might happen soon too.
Well, and Garrett wants to do an Indiana Jones thing. I think it'd be great fun. And then, listen, I haven't dug into this yet, but I saw a report that supposedly Matrix 4 is in the works.
I just saw that today, and the Wachowskis are working on it.
Yes, if that's true, then all the more reason. I'm all for it.
Get Chris Clow on that thing. Chris Clow loves
Chris Clow. Zachy is on too.
That would be. I need that podcast to happen right now. I just want to sit and listen.
Four people is a little much for me these days because those shows get a little long for me, just for my personal taste. But on that show, that's Chris Clow, that's me, that's you, that's Zachy.
I think that we should.
Deal?
I think we need to do that because
yes,
the Matrix trilogy just came out in 4K last year, and I got all 3 of them.
We got to do it.
I rewatched all of them, and for me, they held up. I love those movies; they're so good.
I do too. I love all 3 of them.
Yep. That's another one of those like weird...
The Star Wars prequels.
I was going to say
it's the Star Wars sequels are like they're
kindred spirits, is what they are.
They're kindred spirits.
Yeah.
They absolutely are.
It's one of those things where it's like, is it okay to say you like the sequels? Is it okay to say like I like Attack of the Clones enough? Like, yeah, like whatever. I like the Matrix trilogy. I like how it turned out. So.
Okay, one last Batman thing, and then we're going to go, and just we'll make this quick. I tweeted yesterday.
30-minute men, Rick. We're actually
tweeted yesterday. 30 minutes, yeah, right. Me and Bill say that all the time. 30-minute men. Our shows are 45 minutes.
50-minute podcast vlog.
Yeah, but lots to cover. You and I haven't talked
never really done
on record like this in a while. Yeah, in a while. Well, I haven't been on a show with you in a while either. But I tweeted yesterday that my Batman '89 was my favorite Batman cinematic live action suit. Go, what's yours?
Oh gosh, this is when you tweeted this.
Come on now.
You tweeted this, and I think that this could be a whole show. This could be a whole podcast of us, like, BSing about Batman suits.
Sure, but just give me. You want a whole?
What was the question? My favorite?
Just your favorite suit.
Returns.
Okay.
Returns is my favorite. Although all right. I did
to be continued.
Yeah, I will say the Cal thing for '89 breaks it for me.
Okay.
Put the Returns Cal on 89 Batman, and it's great because that Returns Cal I think is fantastic.
So you can have that leathery, strong, beautiful Cal on that flimsy, tear-like paper suit. Come on. Yeah. Anyway, podcast for another time. All right, let's wrap this up. Follow me on Twitter at ShewRick. Obviously, follow us at Batman on Film. And anyway, thanks for listening, guys. And hit us up on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel there. We're on Patreon. We're everywhere. Facebook. If you are on Facebook, please join us on the Batman on Film private Facebook page. That's a lot of fun. It's just a lot more fun to go there versus like even the traditional platform. It just is. It becomes sort of more of like a country club of a bunch of fans. Right, because you got to be accepted to get in. You invite, it's just great. And then we also have the Rational Star Wars fans that Eric Holzman and I host that site together. So if you're a Star Wars fan and you're on Facebook, please go to the Rational Star Wars fan. What we mean by that is rational. It's okay if you don't like certain movies or whatever. We just don't want you on there saying that Rian Johnson murdered Star Wars or that George Lucas ruined your childhood because of Jar Jar Binks. None of that stuff. Just that's all we ask. Okay, right. So Batman on Film is you're going to do this with me? Because we're the authoritative, the definitive.
The dadgum original.
And the dadgum original. All right, thanks for listening.
Bye.
Hey now. You've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, batmanpodcastnetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF Podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF Podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film Con podcast. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/jet.batmanonfilm. Email Jet via jet@batman-on-film.com. I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.